It is Monday, January 27th, 2025. My name is Attorney Hadley Bajramovic, and I'm here today with.
Ivette Padilla.
We haven't done a podcast in a while, Zayra.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's since last year.
since last year. Yeah, but we knew that it's time to come back. We've been doing a lot of TikTok videos, but
Mhm.
we have had, I think, for the entire 15 years that we've had um, our services available to the public. Everybody that we've talked to in 15 years has called us this week because we've had 1 week since the inauguration and the Trump administration come in, and the Trump administration did as promised and released multiple executive orders and policy memos, which are focused on shock to make people scared
Mhm.
with the,
And it's interesting you mentioned how it's only been 7 days, and I don't
yeah.
know, every day it's something new, and it feels like it's been happening forever. That's why we really needed to do podcast and keep everybody up to date. Our communities are very scared. We've seen the consequences of the mass deportations that he promised he was going to do. Um, everywhere, in the fields, they're reporting like 75% of the people are not showing up,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, in Bakersfield, and everybody is
Okay.
just like so afraid to be detained
Mhm.
and leave their families behind. Some are single parents thinking, who's going to take care of my children? It's very scary. It's very sad. And so obviously that means that everything else is going to be affected by it, obviously, because our produce, our everything, our meats and eggs and what everybody's talking about, I will is gonna be really expensive. And it's something like luxury to eat an egg now.
Well, it's
So
gonna be luxury to eat in a restaurant because, the whole hospitality industry relies on,
yeah,
to some degree,
immigrants, yeah.
yeah, the undocumented. I mean, because
Hmm.
sad reasons, they can pay less, make the profit that they need, turn the profit margin. But, the reason that everybody is afraid is because these executive orders and the Trump borders are human and the new DHS secretary, they just over the weekend made her the head of Department of Homeland Security. The message is shock and awe to tell everybody that they're coming to deport everybody. There's no priority anymore. It doesn't matter if
Hmm.
you're a criminal. And they always put on the website, it says, we're going to deport all criminals, including murderers and rapists. I'm like, okay, we have to single that out. It's just crazy. Anyway,
Well, in their eyes, we're all criminals, like all immigrants are criminals because we're here without status. That's
and
why
I
they're
think they're
treating us that
using,
way.
well, I mean, I think what they're doing on the DHS website is using the same phrases that Trump used.
Mm,
So people
mm-hmm.
connect, you know, but her name is Christine Noem. She's a new DHS secretary. And Human has been on all of the news shows on Sunday saying, we're going to deport everybody we can, no matter there's families, mixed families, just take your kids with you. If you want to get ahead of us deporting you, self deport. That is what he's saying.
And also, I saw that they're saying that Trump wants ICE to deport 1,500 per day.
ICE is publishing the numbers that are being deported, and it's been close to 1,500 per day. Don't read the comments.
It's
They're very
horrible.
upsetting.
They're heartless
Hmm.
comments.
The comments
And
in ICE.
we've seen in different countries like Mexico. I know she denied entry to one of the flights who were sending deportees. Guatemala, I saw the people arriving. Most of them were women and a lot of men, and they look very young. And then they were also saying that they're sending people in military airplanes. So,
Yeah,
the ones
that's
who
what
don't have
happened.
any seats, it's like them like
Yeah,
hanging kind of thing.
yeah,
And also Colombia denied entry
yeah.
to two planes, and that made him very upset, of course. So now they're just going back and forth. It's like, we're not gonna export coffee. We're not gonna export all the
Mm,
flowers that you actually have all over the US. It's ours. So it's just a lot of back and forth with the president of Colombia and
mhm.
what, the retaliation that he's taking, which Trump said that he's no longer giving Colombians visas. So he's like, okay, well, this is our response is, uh,
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, all of that's meant to scare the bejesus out of everybody, and it's working. I know people at work who have family members who are undocumented, and those family members will not leave the house,
mm-hmm,
not to go to the store. So we wanted to talk tonight about what we recommend. A lot of organizations are doing know your rights workshops, know your rights cards. We've created one, but we're trying to make it more to this circumstance because we all follow the ILRC, the Immigration Law Resource Center, and ALA, which is American Immigration Lawyers Association. I'm a member, of both, and their recommendations are basically following Fourth Amendment type recommendations and Miranda rights
mm-hmm,
recommendations like you have the right to remain silent, you have a right to ask for a warrant, don't sign anything. And for me, that's not practical advice to give people because this is not an arrest for a crime. This is an arrest to deport.
mm-hmm,
And as an attorney, I want ICE to negotiate with me. And the only way they're going to negotiate with me, really, in my experience, is if they've they like or have a heart or feel that their targeted detainee is cooperative. I've had to beg for people to be released on a supervision program. In cases where I've been successful, it was because my client on the other side was being cooperative. So, what we're telling everybody that the best way to prepare themselves is to meet with an immigration attorney and make a plan. And this is for all my colleagues. This is what we recommend. And we work with the consulates. We're the designated attorney for the consulate of Guatemala. We've served that role for Mexico. We've dealt with
mm-hmm.
hundreds upon hundreds of these cases in that role. And we've had to go and do detained visits hundreds of times because of those roles. So, what we recommend is that you build a relationship with a trusted immigration attorney.
Yeah, an attorney with experience who's gonna be able to advocate for you and to be there when you get detained and help your family members understand what's going on.
And then also to teach everybody to invoke their right to contact their consulate, which is a right that was established under the Vienna Convention. So ICE does not have an obligation to contact your attorney. And a lot of attorneys are recommending that people keep a form called a G28 signed by an attorney so that ICE knows that there's an attorney that represents this person. But
Mm-hmm.
ICE can look at it and say, okay, thank you for showing me, give it back. They don't have a duty to call us, but they do have a duty to let a detainee call their consulate. So that's why it's important to work with an attorney that knows how to work with the consulates because attorneys with good rapports with like the consulate of Guatemala can find out immediately through the consulate of Guatemala where a detainee is. And if the detainee is already talking to their consulate, we can find out a lot more information and
Mm-hmm.
start acting on their behalf.
So I know that the consulate of Guatemala, which is the one that we have been recently cooperating with and collaborating with, they were able to provide us a lot of information of the detainees because we had that relationship with them. So it's very helpful, when that time comes for you to advocate for yourself and to ask to speak to your consulate because, like Hadley said, depending on the ICE officer, they're gonna obviously disregard the G28 and just be like, whatever, I'm not gonna contact your attorney. I don't have
Yeah.
time for that stuff.
I still think it's useful to have a G28
Yes.
so that when your lawyer shows up, we can show that we have a G28. Do you remember back in the day in Atlanta where they were
Yes.
asking us for G28s? And then I think there were memos that came out that said you're not required to have a G28 when somebody is detained to act on their behalf. But it's still better to have it, like a confirmation that that detainee already knows us, has a
Already
case.
seek for help,
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
advice. It's aware of his situation and what he's able to do and be and eligible to apply if anything. So I think
Yeah.
that's very important to seek advice from an experienced attorney, to get in contact with them. You know, Many times, like I said, on a clinic, no, you're right, clinic, we're like, "Oh, we're not going to speak about it." We say that in the Hispanic community, we're not going to speak about it. But that's not a good thing to do right now. It's better to speak, to talk about these things in your family dinners, in your gatherings, and say, if this happens to me, I talked to an attorney, this is what she advised. It's very important to have that conversation. Make sure your family is aware of what could happen and what they need to do if that situation happens.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to go out where I've had the detainee's information handy and didn't lose time negotiating with the family about what is our retainer, we need like, some money down to go out to speak to somebody because that's what we do for a living. Then it speeds up everything. It makes preventing somebody from being removed that much more possible. If you have it already planned out in advance, then the families and the attorney can mobilize faster and it reduces the stress. Zara, you've had to take those calls all 15 years that you've been working in the office where the family is calling you in panic, fear, and crying. My husband, my dad, my brother just got picked up this morning. And it's the worst moment. They are terrified. But
Yeah.
if you have everything discussed and planned out, the panic, I mean, nobody's not going to panic at this moment.
Exactly. But at least
Mm,
you know what to do after that fact. So I think it's
exactly.
very important to be prepared, to have those numbers prepared. So when that happens, like Hadley said, it's still going to be a panic situation, but then you're going to feel more comfortable knowing what you need to do in order to help your family member.
Yeah. And that's what we've decided. We were talking about what is the best way to serve the community. And we're trying different things. We're trying low cost services like do it
Hmm.
yourself filings where people are not moving forward with family petitions because of money. And hopefully they won't use notarios because a notario can't do anything for you if you're detained.
Hmm.
I mean, they're all ready to meet criminals for filing without having the bar license. But anyway, we know that if you have that relationship with a trusted attorney, it's the same as having a relationship with the doctor. You know that if somebody has a pre-existing condition and you've been going to a doctor and you have an emergency, you call your doctor. It's the same thing. So what we are hoping is that people will take this advice wherever you are in the United States. And if you're listening to us now, you can call us and we can help you. I'm right now I'm in South Carolina. I'm going to be going to meet people um who are afraid and they're not coming out into the open. We're not meeting in open. Um Trying to reach people that don't have access to these types of advices and attorneys, and I'm building relationships with attorneys out here in South Carolina. Next, I hope to go to Alabama to do the same and do what we can to let as many people know as possible that they can develop a relationship with an attorney. And we call it a detainer for deportation. that circumstance.
Retainer. Mhm.
Yeah, a deportation retainer. So if somebody is picked up, you pay a retainer. Our retainer is approximately $1,500.
Yes.
And then we have a file, like, where we have all the information that we need to know about our client, like how many times that person has entered the country. That's important. If
Mhm.
they've been removed before, if they have any criminal background, if they've done anything to rehabilitate from that criminal background, all of that information, if we have it in
U.S.
advance.
citizen and family members, if their
Right.
kids have
Mhm.
special needs, if they have U.S. citizen parents or green card holders, it's very important that you um, give us this information. Like she said, you can retain us to be prepared if that a situation happens, and we'll make a very thorough intake with you and have it ready. So when that happens, hopefully, not, but just looking by the what everything is going on, unfortunately, that's most likely to happen. So we want to be prepared for you. No matter where you're at in the US, we can give you a free consultation. We can prepare you. We can advise you. And obviously, if you decide to have that protection, if that time comes, we'll be here to make sure that we advocate for you and we're there for you when that time comes.
A lot of people are going to be put into removal proceedings.
Hmm.
And that's the critical moment. If we can get to ICE and ask them to NTA somebody rather than drive them down to the border, then we've saved that person, because the person who goes into removal proceedings then has the opportunity to get work authorization and make applications for relief.
Hmm.
And I mean, Zyra, I think most of the people that went into removal, like when we first started our office, they all ended up with some kind of relief
Yeah.
and have work authorization. Under Obama, they were deporting left and right, targeting, and they had these relationships, the 287G relationships with local law enforcement. Again, under Obama. And under these relationships, they apprehended a lot of people. And during that time, I had a lot of clients in the detention facilities. We would go to all these different detention facilities around Southern California.
Yeah, but
All of
that
those
said,
people,
we had options for people doing the right things, where didn't have any criminal background, had U.S. citizen children or spouse, and we were giving options to for them to stay in this country. Uh,
yeah, that's gone. But then,
yeah,
I'm gonna say somebody's first name. I think you're gonna know who I'm talking about. And it's a common enough name that I'm not giving up my client's identity. Mario. Mario was taken to Lancaster
yeah, back in the day, yes.
before, yeah, back in the day.
Before Adelante,
And I think he was picked up for a DUI, but he also had 273.5.
domestic violence. Uh huh.
Okay. Yeah. So because he was in removal, because ICE put him in removal, probably because he had a US citizen spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were able to bond him out. The criminality was a problem. He had to pay a higher bond, but we were able to get him bond. And to this day, and it's been 14 years, he's in the US,
Mm-hmm.
renewing his work authorization, and he's PD closed, like you said. That's not an option right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't an option when he started. He was in court for 4 or 5 years until PD became an option.
Mm-hmm. Now he's in consulate processing.
Okay. And let me think who else. Um, a lot of them actually got green card because they
Mm-hmm.
had children who had disabilities or other circumstances where the judge gave them green cards. Couple won asylum. So, if somebody is targeted and detained, the point is, it's not the end. It could be the beginning. of something better.
Yeah, I think that's something to take in account, because obviously a lot of people are afraid to be detained. Many of them are so afraid and they get into a panic that they believe the best option is for them to sign and go out to Mexico.
Hmm.
We were talking about, our neighbors. And some of the detentions that happen uh on the 20th, that same day or the next day, they were saying like my husband was detained. And we're talking about, you know, I'm sure people who had a removal order already. So they were the spouse spoke into a an interview, and she said, "My husband called me in a couple of hours later. He was already in TJ." So it was like that quick. They just put him
Hmm.
in the van and they drive to the border and say, "Okay, we're done. Go back and detain more people."
Yeah, once they're in their home country, it becomes harder and longer to get them back.
Yes.
So, getting them into removal proceedings is one of our goals. Once somebody is detained, no one's going to say something about that. But I was thinking about the cases that we've had in the past where people have been targeted and put into removal. Once they're in removal, sometimes they're detained at first. And our first goal is to get them bond
Mm-hmm.
because the judges in detained facilities are allowing people to apply for relief, but their goals, we call them rocket dockets. They have
Mm-hmm.
a goal to finish the case, usually in around 6 months.
Yeah.
A lot of people are convinced by ICE officers not to fight in court because they'll say, oh, you're going to fight from detention and you're going to be there for a really long time. You don't want to be
Years.
detained. Yeah. And so people sign voluntary departure to avoid being incarcerated for an extended period. But again, if you've already talked to an immigration attorney can tell you what's going to happen. Like, what are your chances of bond? Like if somebody, and I think we had this situation last week, if somebody has a really serious crime like murder or attempted murder, we can tell them right off the bat if you're detained, you may have the right to into a removal proceeding, but you're going to remain detained.
Yes.
Controlled substance crimes, they're mandatory detention, and
Mhm.
that you have to stay at minimum 6 months in jail or incarcerated to be eligible for bond for controlled substances or aggravated felonies. So,
I
anyway,
was gonna mention, Hadley, that we
mhm,
can provide a lot of people say like, what can I do to find my family member? This is
yeah,
tricky because if they already have a case and you know the file number or the A number that we call it, which is a 9-digit number, you can look it up through a detainee locator. But many times, let's say if your family member never has been in removal proceedings, you can look them up under names. But then in the U.S., many times they don't understand our names, the format of our names. So many
yeah.
times you cannot find them even if you put their complete legal name, the country of origin, and date of birth. So it can be tricky to use that system, but I think right now a lot of people are providing that information, different nonprofits and advocates for the immigrant community. So it's useful for you to have it. We're gonna provide that information so you know where you can get that information. But like I said, it can be very tricky many times because even us for the past 15 years, we've been, having a hard time many times finding somebody through that resource. So, but just in case, we want you to have as much information as you can.
Once somebody has been detained, they can call us on our emergency
Yes.
line. We'll help you find your family member using the ICE locator with how to change the last names around and use old A numbers and different ways to find people. And then
Mm-hmm.
also we can assist you in calling your consulate. The emergency number is 888-735-8731. If you've had a family member detained, call us at 888-735-8731.
3-1.
And please follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We are posting all of our recommendations for you there. But please, our consultations are free. Please reach out to us.
Call
We'd be
us.
glad to
Yeah.
talk to you.
It doesn't matter where you're at, any state, city, wherever it is, we can help you, give you a free consultation, explain the process, what to expect. We're here to help you. And so that's why we're here to be able to give this information to you guys and keep you updated and share with your family, friends, neighbors, because it's so important for us to keep in touch and keep united in these difficult situations. I have every day talking to different friends that they have their family members just like in panic mode because they don't want to leave their homes because they're afraid to be detained and leave their families behind. So it's very sad, and but like all we can do is like prepare you, give you that information, so at least when that time comes, you're gonna feel more at ease, and your family will feel that way too, which is very important.
Yes, and share this video with others who want to know what
Yes.
they can do to help. This is the way to become informed. Thank you, everybody. We'll be
Okay.
back
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you.